I'm Master Saturn. Thank you for joining me for another BDSM United podcast in our Kink Ethics 101 series, where we've been looking at some of the Greek philosophers in the last just most recent episodes, and we've really been trying to. We've defined ethics. We've shown why ethics is important and how ethics applies within kink and BDSM communities already. So make sure you go back and listen to other parts of this series. Today, we want to look at Plato and the Platonic idea. Plato was a fortunate and bright, was fortunate enough to begin his academic career as a student of Socrates. After Socrates died, Plato absorbed new ideas with voyages to Egypt and Italy before returning to Athens to start his own institution, which he called the Academy. Later, a teacher to Aristotle, Plato is the second in the direct line of ancient Greek philosophers who laid the groundwork for the complete history of Western ethical thought. Not only was he a philosopher who suggested fascinating truths about the universe and human nature, and he dared to do so outside of the strict confines of religion, but he also nailed down what it is to make us human. Well, we think, we reason. He was among the first academics or thinkers to develop an analytical system that could be used to analyze information. So in this way, he showed the West how to think about thinking. I often like people who make me think about the things that I don't know to think about. Let me say that again. I like the kinds of people who make me think about the things I don't know to think about. And, I like those people that bring or present an idea into my life that is not along the lines of things that I'm already currently even thinking about or considering. Maybe ethics is that way for you. Maybe you're browsing the kink and BDSM world. You came across a podcast and you're like, wow, kink ethics, that sounds kind of interesting. Maybe you just haven't thought about applying ethics and ethical principles or trying to figure out how kink and BDSM acts ethically, or the types of ethics that we even have, or maybe you don't even think that we have any ethics. Maybe you're looking from the outside looking in and going, I thought this was all whips, chains, leather, and all kinds of taboo deviancy. What are these people doing talking about things like spirituality or ethics or metaphysics or any of those kinds of ivory tower kinds of things? Well, we are people and we are humans. And just because we have kinky, erotic, intimate, sometimes maybe strange to you sexual practices that we enjoy, we also have thoughts and reasons and make connections, and we have relationships. And we probably do communication a lot better than you do. I'm not trying to be, to be rude, but, people within BDSM tend to do communication better than people in the vanilla world as a whole. Maybe not individually, everybody, but as a whole, we tend to do communication a lot better. Now, Plato was a moral philosopher, because at the time, morality was more or less the reach of philosophy. Philosophy had not yet reached the point of the why do we do what we do level of questioning. It was more about how we ought to behave in the best way possible so as to make ourselves happy and content in a world that can be confusing and cruel. The answer to this quandary is virtues. Of the three main Western ethical schools of thought that we will discuss, Virtue ethics is definitely the oldest. It's perhaps also the simplest to understand. Plato created a lot of the basics of virtue theory. He was the mind with the inner. He was of the mind that the inner moral goodness of something does not reside in the action itself. Uh, Rather, virtue ethics focuses on who we are inside, our moral fiber, our conscious, and our virtues. Excuse me. For Plato, an action is only good in that a virtuous person takes those actions and does so from a place of deeply held conviction. In other words, the goodness is already inside of us. Maybe your religion has told you that you're born a sinner, you're born broken, you're born bad, and those, can affect the way that you do the things that you do. For Plato, he believed that you were born with goodness already inside of you. Virtue ethics is the idea that ethics is about the agents, not their actions or not consequences. Those agents must be in possession of positive character traits called virtues in order to act morally and have a good character. Interesting. So, Plato asserted that humans are actually born in possession of all knowledge and that we simply discover it along the way. It's through this that Plato explores, but he really doesn't answer the notion of whether or not virtue can be taught. Plato's most influential work is his Middle Dialogues. It's called The Republic. It's a book about justice, both in an ideal government and an ideal individual. It begins with a Socratic conversation about the nature of justice before continuing into a lengthy discussion of the cardinal virtues of justice, wisdom, courage, and moderation, both in the individual and also in the whole of society. He tied ethics into the political sphere. Such was the importance of it to the government-centric, close-knit city-state of Athens. To Plato, ethics were crucial to the concept of justice at the political level. He held that just individuals make up a just society. Maybe you've heard that before. And that both should be driven by three main virtues: temperance, wisdom, and courage. These first three, when properly developed and balanced, result in the fourth virtue, justice. So he wrote a book called The Republic. In an individual person, each of his classes corresponds to a part of his or her soul. He had three classes. Guardians, these are the rulers. Auxiliaries, this was the warrior or military class. The defenders. And producers, the largest class of society, and what we call the working class or perhaps the middle class. And these were basically everyone who wasn't a ruler and wasn't a warrior. Everyone from doctors, artists, judges, and craftsmen. And so the guardians are wise and all-knowing, according to Plato. They are the reason personified. Spirit, which means the mind's emotional systems and impulses, goes along with the reactive and regulatory auxiliary. Producers correlate to the appetites because both are about the propagation either of the city or of the self. So I don't want to really lose you here, but in his book, The Republic, Plato kind of divides things up into three classes and relates those three classes of people to his system of ethics. Plato was quoted as saying, "There are three classes of men: lovers of wisdom, lovers of honor, and lovers of gain." So it's kind of still limited. Plato's still kind of limited in his understanding of ethics, builds on Socrates, brings in some more structure, brings in some brings in some politics into the discussion of ethics, and influences us on his belief that people already Socrates said that people did not act virtuous because they didn't yet have the knowledge. Plato, however, thought that people already have the knowledge and they discover it along their journey. That people are inherently, they both believe that people are inherently good, and that they learn and they act virtuously, and they want to learn and act virtuously. Like I said, not sure I 100% agree with that. I've known some evil people. I've met some really evil people that their whole goal in their life was to do evil to others, and they have done a lot of evil to others. And so it's, how do we qualify, how do we put those people into the equation of, of the view of ethics that all people are inherently good and just want to do good? Where do these people fit? And so we definitely need to think about that. And in one of my past podcasts, I told you to quit trusting people. Stop just inherently trusting people. You got to vet people. You got to ask questions about them. You have to question the things that they tell you about themselves. Quit just automatically trusting people. You don't want to necessarily be 100% a Socrates or a Plato about people and just say, oh, they're all inherently good, and they all are going to have, they all are going to have the best intentions for how they play with me or what they do to me. That may not be 100% the case. And so, we're kind of going through the history of philosophy, of ethics, and seeing, where some of it started, and we'll definitely develop it more as we go. So we can look to history and kind of see where we've been and see what's where what the roots of it are, but we don't want to necessarily stop at history. We want to progress through history. I'm Master Saturn. Thank you for joining me for another in our Kink Ethics 101 kind of mini series, mini course, and through the BDSM United podcast. You can find all of our resources and the past episodes in this Kink Ethics, because this obviously isn't the first episode. You can find all of that at bdsmunited.com. I encourage you to go listen to those. And you can also find our kinky, not safe for work, naughty, uncensored social space that we created for ourselves because we were tired of being censored on social media. We've been doing social media for a number of years, and then one of the things we don't like about it is that we can't just post everything that we want to post. Some allow nudity and others don't. Some, the ones that allow nudities oftentimes don't allow you to post more than just a few characters of commentary, and we want to be able to do both on the same network. So we created our own space at mastersaturn.com. And it was a joy speaking with you today, and I'll talk with you again soon.